Here are 25 facts about the prototype that you might not know about. 1. Some of the toys call the prototype the original, most likely meaning that he was the first success of the Bigger Bodies initiative. But considering the fact that he runs using tar and is so intelligent that one of the scientists said they had to suppress it for future experiments, he wasn't their first real success, as that title was given to Boxy Boo. 2. Although the prototype runs on tar, if you look at his arm coming down through the ceiling in chapter 3, you can see that he has 2 bones attached to his arm, meaning that although he is highly mechanical, he also has some biological parts to him, meaning he was most likely a human before his creation. 3. In Project Playtime, the prototype is the one who gives Huggy directions on what to do during the tutorial, telling Huggy that we're trying to make more toys, using that as a motivator for Huggy to do whatever he says.
They are trying to build more toys. You see the location of every puzzle pillar. Protect them. Kill everyone in sight.
4. Although the prototype stole Ollie's identity, he does say that Ollie used to exist at one point in time, most likely meaning that the prototype did something to him, probably by killing him. 5. The prototype actually has a face, and we know this from 2 things. The first being the shrine that we see Catnap worshipping in chapter 3, and also one of the chapter 4 notes, which describes an event where the prototype was tapping on the glass of Safe Haven when one of the toys was watching him. 6. The prototype also really needs Poppy for some reason, as he literally kills everybody else whenever he feels like it, but Poppy is the only toy who he tries to convince to be on his side because of what they are.
Don't you understand?
It's always been about you
And we'll harm you.
What we are. That's not a truth that can be brought
Away. No. Not when it can mean so much more.
prototype. Please,
It's time to come home.
Poppy.
It's time to come home.
7. Although we don't see the prototype in the Hour of Joy, we actually do have confirmation that he killed one of the staff before then, as in a chapter 2 tape we hear of an event where he managed to trick some of the staff into opening the door to his enclosure, where he then murdered one of them when he couldn't escape. 8. Theodore Granbell, or as we know him, Catnap, had an imaginary friend, or at least that's what the Playtime Co staff thought, as his imaginary friend was actually the prototype, telling him to do things like grabbing documents. And since Theodore was just a child, he could get away with it without being punished as harshly as the prototype would. 9. But this also shows that the prototype managed to escape containment even before the Hour of Joy and roamed the factory, which is surprising because if he's as smart and violent as they portray him to be, then the factory would have been blown up a long time ago by his hands. 10. However, this might have been what was mentioned in the final tape in chapter 1, where the scientist says that he's still missing, which means that during his time outside of containment, he could have used that in order to convince all of the toys into the Hour of Joy. 11. The prototype also seems to not want to leave the factory. Him and Theodore managed to open a door to leave, but he decided to stay in order to save Theodore's life. But even after the Hour of Joy, for some reason he continues to stay in the factory. 12. The prototype also seems to be an anomaly out of all the experiments, as Boxy Boo was supposedly the first of the experiments not limited to size of their original body. But with the silhouettes that we see of him in chapter 4, this dude is so huge, so it's possible that he could have added on to his body, or that because it's mechanical, his biological body can control it from the inside, almost like a mech suit. 13. The prototype also doesn't need to eat, as in the chapter 1 trailer we see some text very faintly in the background talking about the prototype, and that although he has a gastrointestinal system, he doesn't need to eat, meaning that he could be running on tar or other things. 14. But this also means that he's immune to the starvation problem that's happening inside of Playtime Co., as all of the safe haven toys tell us that they're worried about dying of hunger, yet the prototype seems to be doing just fine. 15. A lot of the death screens also seem to be the prototype trying to tell us something, as a lot of them end by saying "get up," which is the exact same thing that the prototype tells Huggy in the Project Playtime trailer. 16. Although he's called the prototype, he's actually the second experiment that we know chronologically, as Poppy Playtime was created before him, most likely meaning that he was the prototype for the Bigger Bodies initiative. 17. The labs is the prototype's home, and since we see him very rarely, it's possible that he could be down here most of the time, as Poppy calls it his home, and he even refused to let Harley Sawyer down there.
They're below, in the labs. The prototype's home.
Time is precisely what we do not have. Then I suggest you find some more. That will give me labs access, at least with the two of us.
That is out of the question.
You will still want.
18. As we hear throughout the game, the prototype is able to mimic other speech, and seems to do this for some kind of intimidation effect, as when he talks to us through the Ollie-phone, he never once switches his voice, most likely meaning that he uses certain voices for certain moods or effects. 19. The prototype might just be the fastest character in all of Poppy Playtime, as when we go out of view of the charges we planted down in the foundation, Safe Haven explodes just about a minute later. So that means he had to have taken the bombs, ran all the way to Safe Haven, planted them there, and exploded them all in that time frame. 20. The prototype has a deep hatred for Playtime Co., but more specifically, what they did with the Bigger Bodies initiative. As in a tape in chapter 3, we hear the prototype try to intimidate Sawyer for their experimentation.
I possess.
A question.
Go ahead.
Do you feel anything?
This question referred to what exactly?
You stick us.
Beat us. Tear at flesh. Do you feel it?
And in one of the Project Playtime tapes, we see the prototype say that the Bigger Bodies initiative will fail. 21. Ever since the beginning of chapter 1, it seems that Sawyer has been watching us this entire time. But the prototype also seems to be watching us quite a bit, as he managed to take away Mommy Longlegs' body right after we killed her. He managed to kill Catnap right after we electrocuted him, and he even managed to take the bombs in chapter 4 as soon as we left. 22. The prototype needs us alive for some reason, as in the chapter 2 story so far video, we hear that Sawyer was taking notes on us during each of the Game Station games.
First stop was musical memory, a cognitive test. Simple, but a useful metric for us.
And since he doesn't kill us when we see him, the prototype must need us for some purpose, possibly even using us for an experiment. 23. The prototype has a special connection with Poppy, as in the chapter 4 phone call, he tells us that he put Poppy in the case in order to get her to understand something. Yet he'll literally kill any other experiment, and even killed Catnap, who worshipped him. 24. The The prototype is also a master manipulator, with two of his greatest skills being coordination and cooperation, as seen with the Hour of Joy, and also with the fact that he's working with Harley Sawyer in order to figure out the secret that he's after. 25. Even though he seems to be mostly mechanical, we can assume that he can feel pain, because in the chapter 3 tape, when he talks to Harley Sawyer, he gets angry when talking about the fact that the employees beat the experiments. Bonus fact, the prototype was greatly feared throughout the entire factory, as even Mommy Longlegs, who seemed to be a lone wolf in the game station, feared that the prototype would make her part of him even after her death.
What have you done? You make me part of you! You can't do this to me!
But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and click on this video right here.